Welcome to Rex Factor!
This week, Series 4, Introduction. With your hosts, Graham Duke and Ali Hood.
Hello!
Hello!
And welcome to Rex Factor, where we are going to be reviewing all the Nearly Monarchs of England, from Ethelwald to Albert Victor, the people who could or should have become the monarch, only for fate to intervene.
We're just going straight in then. I feel like normally we do some... I suppose I've been working on it.
You say, well, I feel like normally we do some kind of introduction, get ourselves into it, what we're doing. Well, that's what this episode is. This is Series 4 Introduction.
Okay, good.
Which is useful for Ali, because we are at the start of a big recording day, recording quite a few episodes in one go. But we thought it would be useful to have a little episode at the start of the series, just to lay the ground and explain to people what we mean by Nearly Monarchs, and indeed who the Nearly Monarchs are.
All right.
So that's what we're going to be doing today. If you want to find out more about us, head to our website, rexfactorpodcast.com, and find all our links to social media pages. And if you want to hear more of us, then you can join the Privy Council and get loads of bonus content, including our Discord channel and over 450 bonus episodes, as well as ad-free versions of the main podcast at patreon.com/rexfactor.
It's weekly gubbins there, isn't it? Because we do Tuesday talks.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can also now watch the main podcast either on Spotify or YouTube. We are now doing videos for all of our main episodes, which means it takes us a lot longer to get going.
And I can't take my trousers off.
Well, you are sort of, I think, top focused in terms of the video. So whatever's going on downstairs, I don't think the listeners need to know.
Okay. I'd hate to lose that...
freedom.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's find out what we're doing in Series 4.
Right.
Series Concept.
So, as I said at the top, and as I'm going to say in every episode for the next however long, it's all the Nearly Monarchs of England and the United Kingdom, from Ethelwald to Albert Victor. But what is a Nearly Monarch?
Yeah.
Well, these are people who either should or could have become the monarch, only for fate to intervene. So in some cases, this will be an eldest child of a monarch that predeceases their ruling parent, so they never get a chance to rule, but they should have done.
Got you.
Had they survived.
Yep.
Alternatively, there'll be people who feel like they have a claim to the throne, and they make an effort to get the throne, but are ultimately unsuccessful.
Give us an example of him.
So we could have...
All I've got is Henry VII.
All I've got is Henry VII, who is a king because he's got that number. Well, I mean, you said give us an example of him, which is what threw me. So, I mean, the Empress Matilda, for example, is one who should have been monarch because she was her father's heir, but Stephen takes the throne and she has to fight this civil war, and she never actually technically...
Is there ever anyone who isn't the daughter or son of a...
Yes, we'll have those as well. So, we'll find out in a minute. I'm going to go through literally everyone that we're going to do this series. I'm going to do a list. Right. But that's what we're doing basically. So some of them, it will be very clear they predeceased their parent, they should have been the monarch, but they die young.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily young if their parent lives a very long time. Or they have a claim to the throne, possibly a good one, possibly slightly tenuous, and they try to get it, whether by invasion or revolt or whatever, but they never quite manage it.
Right.
So quite different sort of stories that we'll be telling there, but in all cases, they are nearly monarchs. They don't quite make it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering which one we might end up giving more weight to, because unlike previous series, where everyone has something in common, that they're a consort or they're the king, there's sort of two different nearlies.
Yes, and we're going to have a little look at the scoring and our approach to that, but it is an interesting difference for this series that we're sort of doing unsuccessful people.
But that's it. There's unsuccessful people and just unlucky people who, okay, interesting.
Now, why are we doing the Nearly Monarchs in this series? Well, the basic answer is that we had a vote with the Privy Councillors in the last, at the end of the last series, and it beat the Scottish Consort by one vote.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
Wow. So if you didn't vote and are feeling disappointed, wow.
If you didn't join the Privy Council. But in terms of what we're hoping to get from this series, one thing it's going to do, hopefully, is fill in some of the gaps in English and British history from the previous three series. So some big names, like we mentioned, the Empress Matilda, the Black Prince, Lady Jane Grey.
John of Gaunt?
No, he's not really a Nearly Monarch. I mean, obviously, we did do a special episode on him that you could get by signing up on Patreon. So you know exactly who he is. You're very comfortable with him. You no longer need an episode on John of Gaunt, of course.
I might need an episode of John of Gaunt. We did a whole special on him.
Yeah, and you get special episode extras where we do a bit more. So you probably got about 3.5 hours of John of Gaunt.
I remember he's actually John of Ghent.
Yes, there you go. You certainly, at least the first 5 minutes went in.
Yeah, that's it.
Mm.
Well, that was helpful though.
Yeah,
John of Ghent.
Yeah.
So we're not doing him, all right?
We're not doing him. He was never really in the frame.
Well, Lady Jane Grey.
Yes, Lady Jane Grey, indeed.
Oh, I can't wait to find out who on earth she is.
Exactly. So some of the sort of big names that were there, but we didn't do an episode on them. But also there'll be some others that maybe people don't know about, but actually it'd be quite interesting to see how different history might have been had they had their...
This feels like rich Rex Flicks pickings here.
Quite possibly.
I mean, not just films that have been made about these people.
Films that could be made.
But yeah, I think we're going to be saying Hollywood a lot. What are you playing at?
Well, exactly. And indeed, the what-if scenarios, the counterfactual history is also a fun thing with this one, because every episode we will get to consider, how might things have been different had this person made it to the throne.
There's quite a backlash against counterfactuals.
Well, I don't know if it's backlash. It's maybe not always looked on
seriously
by academic historians because you don't know. You're just guessing. But I think it's a useful thing to do to see the significance of events. If this had gone
exactly,
what could it have meant?
It enhances my love of history because it shows how all of history is just finely balanced on these sliding door moments, not because I wish the Nazis had won or something horrible.
But equally, I mean, obviously, if we do trace it back, it does really go to Robert Harrison Fatherland, and that is thus why I have a very strong positive correlation with counterfactual history.
That is a great book. That is a great book. Yeah. I'd read that again. Oh, what's he playing at? He should be pumping out another one soon, shouldn't he?
I think he is. I think he's going back to the Romans.
Oh. He's at his best when he's fiddling with Nazis. Everyone knows that.
Now... perhaps the main thing we've been asked about in the build-up to this series is who are we going to be doing in the series? Because obviously all the previous series we've done, it's been a very clear list that, there might be one or two debatable ones as to whether or not we include them, and there's sometimes a question of where we start, where we finish, but essentially it's a fixed list of who we do. But Nearly Monarchs is a little bit more subjective. We've got a little bit more of a decision to be making. So I thought it'd be useful at this early juncture to actually literally list everyone that we're doing in the series.
Okay. Are we going to... So this is it. This is set in stone. Are we going to add anyone to it?
It's not impossible that we could add. It's not impossible that there might be one or two that we ultimately decide not to do. It could be one of those where once I get into the research and look at them, I might think, not sure. Generally speaking, we're not doing young children.
Yeah.
Because for quite most of history, there'll be basically nothing actually written about them, so I have nothing to say. And also, it's just kind of a sad thing, so it's not really...
I've got enough kids at home.
But there might be one or two where, because of how significant their death is...
Princes in the Tower?
Well, no, because the eldest prince in the Tower is officially Edward V. So he isn't a Nearly Monarch, he actually is officially monarch.
Is he really?
He is. Otherwise,
did we do an episode on him?
We did. Otherwise, Edward VI wouldn't be Edward VI. He'd be Edward V.
But he can't have been crowned, has he?
No, but they're not all. Edward VIII wasn't crowned either.
So, I mean...
what even is a monarch, Graham? I mean, let's really go back to basics on this one.
How did Richard III do it? That if he was already king?
Richard III said that he actually...
Oh, yeah.
This doesn't count. And then Henry VII overthrows Richard III and said, what an evil man. Obviously, that was the rightful monarch, Edward V.
So Richard III doesn't count?
Well, I think he does count because he did reign.
But according to the next line of monarchs...
He shouldn't. The next line of monarchs would say that he shouldn't have reigned and that he was a usurper, but nevertheless, the fact was that he did.
Right.
He usurped the throne and was crowned and anointed. So he was the monarch, but he shouldn't have been.
That would make a Richard... There's never been a Richard IV, have they?
No.
That's Blackadder, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it's another great counterfactual moment.
Yeah, good point.
So there will be one or two younger Nearly Monarchs that we might do just because it's such a sort of pivotal moment.
Yeah.
That one dying, but generally we're focusing more on the adult ones. But anyway, let's find out who we're doing in this series.
Right.
The Nearly Monarchs.
So we'll be starting off with the Anglo-Saxons, and we'll be going back to the days of Alfred the Great.
Why?
Because that's where it starts for us. So we're kicking off with his nephew Ethelwald, who was a rival for the throne with Alfred's son Edward the Elder.
Right.
Might be familiar, anyone who's watched or read Last Kingdom series, Ethelwald is a recurring character in that.
With blinding accuracy, I bet.
Well, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting take on him. After that, we'll have a double header for the brothers Elfriard and Edwin, who are half-brothers to Athelstan,
Oh, yeah.
and thus rivals to succeed Edward the Elder. Then we've got our first female Nearly Monarch, Edith of Wilton, or Saint Edith of Wilton. as she
Definitely
was.
heard of her.
She is a daughter of Edgar the Peaceable and a possible alternative to Ethelred the Unready.
Oh.
After that, we skip forwards a few decades to a sort of forgotten man in the midst of the 1066 goings-on, Edward the Exile.
Who's the guy I like?
Edgar the Etheling, which is his son. So this is the father of Edgar the Etheling and a son of Edmund Ironside, who gets rather forgotten about, but actually he's pivotal to the whole thing. We will do Edgar the Etheling as well, but after the only Viking of this series, who is another one with a somewhat tenuous claim to the throne you were asking about earlier, Harold Hardrada.
Oh, I'm pleased about that.
Proper Viking, but as he's very much not a descendant of any English monarch.
Right, yeah.
But he's a Viking, so, you know. After that, we move on to the Normans. So we start off with Robert Curthose, who's the eldest surviving son of William the Conqueror, but he's beaten to the throne by two younger brothers, William Rufus and Henry I.
I mean, he's got short legs if it's a race.
That's the problem, yeah. The second of these, Henry I, his son William Adelin is on the list because he dies famously in the White Ship disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Leading to uncertainty about the succession. There's then a call for Robert Curthose's son, William Clito, to be named as heir, but Henry I resists this, so William Clito is also on our list as a Nearly Monarch.
Right. I've got so many questions, but we'll find out in the episodes.
Exactly. Ultimately, Henry declared his daughter, his only legitimate daughter, the Empress Matilda, as his heir, but then she also appears on our list because her cousin Stephen nabbed the throne ahead of her, and they fight the anarchy, a civil war, in the battle for it, at the end of which Stephen agrees to recognise Matilda's son, Henry II, as his heir, thus disinheriting his own eldest son, Eustace, who is also on our list.
Okay, good. Died of another set of Lamprey or something, isn't he?
Well, it'll be an interesting one. It's quite convenient that Eustace dies when he does die, and there's a few of those in this series, so that'll be interesting to look at. Then we move on to the Plantagenets, starting with one of the mystery men that you've needed an explanation for quite a long time, Henry the Young King.
He's made his way in to my head.
Interesting. Yeah. So he's crowned co-king during the reign of his father Henry II, but dies before him. After that, we have the siblings Arthur and Eleanor of Brittany. Now, they are the children of the third surviving son of Henry II, a chap called Geoffrey of Brittany.
John kills them.
Well, Arthur, he does with Arthur, but John is the fourth surviving son, so by strict primogeniture, these children of the third son should actually have come ahead of John, but John, obviously.
Textbook John.
Exactly, textbook John. John ends his reign in ignominy when the barons rebel against him and they invite the French Dauphin to invade the future Louis VIII. So he is on our list.
Oh, right. Yeah, cool.
Because he very nearly does establish himself as king. And then we skip ahead a bit to the Black Son, eldest son of Edward III, won many remarkable victories in the 100 Years' War. Again, one of those sort of famous names. English medieval
The Black
history.
Prince.
The Black Prince.
Right,
But predeceases his father, so never becomes king. That resulted in his infant son, Richard II, becoming king, and when he is overthrown, a lot of people see that as moving us towards the Wars of the Roses.
Richard II was the son of the Black Prince.
Yes.
Right. Not the, and who was the Black Prince the son of?
Edward III. So it skips a generation.
Edward III? Good one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the
the good Edward.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So then we move on towards the Wars of the Roses. So Richard, Duke of York, is the major player in that. He's the one who
Paper Crown.
tries to get rid of Paper Crown, tries to get rid of Henry VI, so he'll be on our list. Henry VI's son, Edward of Westminster, is also on the list.
Hang on, Henry VI.
So Henry VI is the Lancastrian, the one who
Put to sleep.
is put to sleep, has his mental health problems. His son is killed in battle or after a battle just before Henry VI himself is put to sleep. So is Nearly Monarch.
Was that at Tewkesbury?
Yes.
Check me out.
And there were a lot of battles in that period as well, so it's not like you picked the one battle in 50 years. That's like...
No, for some reason I remember that they dashed over that side of the country while a she-wolf, we don't know which one, no one does, came across from France, bit late. There you go. Book.
Yes, broadly speaking.
Yeah.
We will then finish, in terms of the Wars of the Roses bit, with, well, potentially, this is one of the first ones where I might not do him. So Richard III's only son, Edward of Middleham. Now, he's quite young. I think he's only about sort of 10 or so. And I don't know if there'll be much to say about him. But because of his death, Richard doesn't have an heir. So there's kind of not a clear Plantagenet heir. So it's quite significant that his son dies.
Yeah.
But we might decide to do maybe like an interview episode or something.
Oh, yeah, that's
rather
good.
than actually reviewing Edward of Middleham.
Yeah.
Yeah. After that, we move on to the Tudor Nearlys. So we have Henry VIII's older brother, Arthur Tudor.
Oh, yeah.
Who dies shortly after marrying Catherine of Aragon.
Mm.
Then we have an illegitimate son of Henry VIII, Henry Fitzroy, who potentially he was considering naming his heir before the birth of Edward VI. And finally, one of the ones you're looking forward to, Lady Jane Grey, the 9 Days Queen.
Excellent.
After that, we move on to the Stuarts, and there are a lot of Stuarts on our list.
It feels like that's when it all goes a bit... It sort of cements a bit back in England. Because you got after the Civil War, like, okay, all the nastiness is drained away, and there's this thing. But then all the Bonnie Prince Charlies and all this Bonnie Prince Johnny come Charlie Latelys and banging around France and Scotland.
Yeah.
I mean, there's loads of them. They've all got the same name, haven't they?
Well, I mean, if you just keep saying the same one, then they say it to us. Ironically, most of them are called James, but nevertheless.
Bonnie, Jamie, Charlie, Lately, you know.
Well, before we get to that, we've got the eldest son of James I, Henry Stuart, who was a very popular youth and should have been king instead of his younger brother, Charles I.
Really?
So a big counterfactual there. If he'd become king instead of Charles, would we have had the Civil War? Following previous series, we are going to have a little Cromwell diversion.
On Richard?
We'll do Richard Cromwell, who did briefly succeed his father as Lord Protector, but again, very much sort of gets forgotten about in the midst of things. Then we have the eldest illegitimate son of Charles II, James Duke of Monmouth, who failed in an attempt to usurp his uncle James II.
Okay. I don't remember that.
Monmouth's rebellion. James himself is overthrown in the Glorious Revolution, so that gives us the Jacobites.
Yeah, which is where we have all these fellows.
All these others. So James's eldest son, who is also called James, the supposed bedpan baby.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes known as the Old Pretender. Then we have his sons, Bonnie Prince Charlie, the famous one.
Their Pretender is another one. They're always called Pretender.
And Cardinal Henry Benedict Stuart.
Who's this?
It's the brother of Bonnie Prince Charlie, who doesn't really actively try to become king, but he does claim to be king.
Weird. So, hang on, isn't there a young pretender? Who's the old pretender?
The Old Pretender is the bedpan baby.
Well, that's...
But he's not old at that point, but he becomes old later on.
And his son is the young pretender.
And yes, which Bonnie Prince Charlie.
That's gonna take some untangling, I think.
What we'll do is we'll do them in separate episodes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And finally, for the Stuarts, and sort of going back in time a little bit, but it feels the appropriate point to end, we'll have the son of Queen Anne, William Duke of Gloucester.
I didn't think she had any.
Well, obviously, tragically, anyone familiar with Anne's story will know that she has lots and lots of pregnancies and lots of either ones that don't go to term or ones that die in infancy. But there is one child who does live to be a child, but dies. I think he's about 10 or 11 or something. But with the Stuarts, obviously, you have more recorded about him because it's obviously later on in history.
Yeah.
And because he dies, that is a major moment because it just the entire succession rules have to change because they don't want Catholics and they have to get through a lot of Catholics before they find some Protestants. That's where we get a proper act of succession and a defined line.
Who comes after Anne then?
Well, after Anne is actually another Nearly Monarch. So we've got the Hanoverians, but the first Hanoverian was very nearly the mother of George I, Sophia of Hanover, who, although being a lot older than Anne, was only actually a few weeks away from succeeding her.
And she died?
And she died just before Anne.
Right.
So she's a Nearly Monarch. Then we've got the son of George II, father of George III, Frederick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Supposedly killed by the cricket ball. According to legend, he's hit by a cricket ball and it does stuff to him. Probably not true, as we'll see. Then we have the only legitimate daughter of George IV, Princess Charlotte.
Yep.
A brother of George IV, Frederick, Duke of York, who becomes the heir as a result of George not having any children, and before everyone else has got anything set up. And then the series will finish with the eldest son of Edward VII, Albert Victor, who, strictly speaking, isn't actually the heir. In fact, Charlotte isn't actually the heir either.
Why?
In both cases, their grandparent is still on the throne. So for Princess Charlotte, it's in the reign of George III. For Albert Victor, it's in the reign of Queen Victoria.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're the eldest son of the eldest son.
Yeah.
They're adults as well. It very much feels like they are the future.
Yeah. Like William at this point.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, no, yes. Not
No,
at this point.
Yeah.
If 10 years ago William had died before the Queen, he technically would never have been the heir, but you'd feel like he was a Nearly Monarch.
Yeah.
So those are all the Nearly Monarchs.
Hang on, who's the new William then? He's got loads of kids. What's their names?
George is the eldest.
So it'll be a George. The seventh.
Yeah. Well, those are all the Nearly Monarchs. I mean, he's not yet on the list.
Yeah, stick him on.
We'll explain our approach to the factors after a quick break.
The factors.
So the subjective factors, battliness, scandal, subjectivity, shouldn't really operate any differently to previous series. Perhaps might be a bit trickier for some of those legitimate heirs who die young, thus they don't have as much opportunity to actually do anything. So a bit similar to the consort series, maybe, like in battliness, we might be looking for sort of agency of action or independence, a bit of spark to go on, a bit of potential in terms of what we can find. But otherwise, it's basically as usual.
Which factor's that, did you say?
That's battliness. That's what we did with the consorts. Yeah. But scandal, subjectivity, I guess subjectivity is the other one. I guess it's might be looking for evidence of what they might have done, how they might have ruled, without actually having them ruling.
Tricky.
When it comes to the factual factors, however, so longevity and dynasty, I have made a bit of a change.
Oh, here we go.
So the usual way that we've done it in previous series, we've always had this bit of a struggle to quantify these ones, because initially we just did how long are they the monarch for, and then that was their score. But it thought, well, that's unfair, because you get a rubbish monarch who's king for 40 years.
Yeah.
They get this huge score. So then we found ways of dividing it into a score out of 20 to fit with the other factors. We had one approach early on, the patiometer, and then we changed it to something that was based on kind of medians and quartiles. So the middle score would be 10, and then you'd have the first quartile of 5, the third one at 15, top at 20, and you'd have sort of intervals.
It just makes it a little bit more accurate, flattening out that curve.
Exactly. Now that works pretty well for longevity, but it's always been a bit of a struggle for dynasty, because with dynasty, which is legitimate surviving children, you don't have a large number in there. In fact, you will, I think, always have less than 20.
Yeah.
And this series in particular, because we've got a smaller number, the series itself is shorter, and by their nature, a lot of these people will not have any surviving children.
Yeah, they're children themselves.
So I had a bit of a problem in that I think the original median dynasty in terms of number of children for this series was 0.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really work to get 10 points for 0.
Yeah, how are we going to do that?
Well, so then I tried a more balanced approach. I thought, right, well, this is how many they are. This is the maximum number of children. If we divide it by 20 and just go up in equal intervals, where does that take us? But then one child would only get you a score of 2 points, which felt a bit too low. But obviously 10 felt a bit too high. So basically, I just asked Copilot, and it suggested using the square root. So I've got a bit of a formula which ensures a bit more of a fair curve going upwards. So now one child equates to a score of 6.5 out of 20.
Right.
So it feels, plenty more than 2, which feels fair, but equally it's not up at 10, which felt a bit too high.
2 as a score.
Yeah. So that's how it's working. I can give you at some point the full formula if anybody wants it, but that's basically what I'm doing. I'm using a slightly more fixed formula. And the nice thing about that is that will then work in every series, because I've always kind of adjusted the dynasty approach to try and make it work.
Oh, right. We can go back.
Yes, and that I have done that. So I have a combined spreadsheet where I take all the previous monarchs, consorts, and put them in one spreadsheet. Obviously, their battling and scandal subjectivity scores remain the same.
Yeah.
But because longevity in dynasty is always measured against the other people in the series, those scores change in the combined spreadsheet because you're measuring it against everybody rather than just your own series. So I've used this square root formula for the longevity in dynasty to see what impact it makes, and it has made a bit of a change.
Go on.
So basically, most of the scores have gone down a bit on the impact. Now, previously, the all-time top 5 had Edward I in 5th with
For what?
77.5.
With kids?
No, just total score. Total score.
Right, okay.
I thought that would be more interesting than longevity dynasty specifically. So we had Edward I in 5th, Robert the Bruce in 4th with 80 points, and then a 3-way tie at the top with Henry II, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and Isabella of France, all with 82.
Really?
Yeah. But now everyone's score has gone down a little
So
bit.
Edward I is 3rd?
No, Edward I is 5th because you do the top one. So
Yeah,
it's
but-
and technically nobody gets a silver or bronze medal in that scenario. They all just gather on the top podium,
Yeah.
sharing the golds. But yeah, so everybody's score has gone down a bit, but not by the same amount. So how will this change the top 5?
Interesting.
Well, we now have a tie between Edward I and Robert the Bruce. They're
That's more like it.
both on 74.5.
But with an understanding that Edward I is better.
Well, exactly. We have an understanding that probably the subjective factors should really be the tie-break in that scenario, because that's where we've judged them and decided who's better or not. So obviously Robert the Bruce remains on top, 51.5 against Edward's 45. Quite a comfortable victory there, really. After that, we've got Isabella of France in the 3rd with 76.5 points, but who will be top, Henry or Eleanor?
Eleanor.
There's only half a mark in it, and it is now Eleanor of Aquitaine.
This really works.
She's now got 77.5, Henry II 77, as I said, Isabella 76.5.
This really works. Because she, spoiler alert, turn off if you can. She won overall, didn't she?
At Ludlow, when we combine the top
Yeah.
3 against each other, yeah.
Oh, well done. This is really good. And I like that we've got like a subjective goal difference differentiator.
So, slightly new approach to longevity in Dynasty, but hopefully that one will now be the fixed system. It should work for all series now.
That's
I don't
brilliant.
Need to be fiddling about with it. After that, of course, we consider whether or not each person has that certain something, the great achievement, the lasting legacy, the star quality that we call... Rex Factor. Now, this is obviously largely still the same, but we might perhaps be swayed a little by the counterfactual element. Because sort of by definition, you could say none of these are successful people. They all fail to become the monarch
Yeah.
for various reasons. So that doesn't mean they can't have star quality, and it doesn't mean they can't have great achievements elsewhere. But equally, they might impress us with their what if. They might impress us with the attempt to become monarch, or how different things might have been, the promise that they had. Because what we don't want to do is just always imagine an incredible reign where everything went their way and therefore they win the Rex Factor every single time. But likewise, we don't want to go, well, it's very good, but fundamentally they didn't become king, did they? So rubbish, so nobody gets a Rex Factor. So we need to find a balance where we do reward actual achievements and star quality, but we are also mindful of the what if.
Okay. How are we going to do that?
Well, we'll see. We'll find out. It will be an interesting one. I don't quite know exactly who's... I'd say the series where I've got the least sense going into it of all the people that might get the Rex Factor and might win, etc. It's a different mindset, I think, this series.
Okay.
Correspondence Corner.
So that is what is to come in Series 4. Head to our website, rexfactorpodcast.com, to get all our links and more information about the podcast, and find all our links to social media if you want to get in touch with us. If you'd like to support the podcast, then go to patreon.com/rexfactor, where you can get ad-free versions of the main podcast, over 450 additional bonus episodes, and access to our Discord server where we chat. Yeah, you were
Turned off for a
a
minute.
little world there. Yeah, it's fine. Go. You just.
You carry on.
Yeah.
You've got this bit covered because I've got some very important thoughts to have.
Sorry, I was just really fascinated by your knee there. Anyway, but that is all from us today. So next time, well, actually, no, we're not going to be doing Ethelwald next time. We're going to do an interview episode, actually, before we start the podcast. We're going to be speaking to an author called Emily Murdoch Perkins, who's written a book, Regina, that's very much of an ilk with what we're doing here, because she's looked at all of the daughters who could have been queen, had the succession rules not prioritised sons over daughters.
Interesting.
So we'll have a few bits of overlap in terms of some of the people in this series with hers, but also it's just that very similar kind of the counterfactual, the what if, shedding a light on some of those forgotten figures that maybe could have been the ones in the front seat. So I think that'd be an interesting way to start the series, and a nice little transition from the consorts to the...
Yeah, well, that's how we started the previous series, wasn't it? With an interview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chatted to Emma Sullivan. So we'll chat to Emily next time, and then after that we will begin our Nearly Monarch Odyssey with Ethelwald.
All right. See you later then.
See you next time.